Joining us now, Senator Mark Obenshain from the Harrisonburg Area State Senator. Now, you know Mark Obenshain. He's a regular guest on my show. He ran for Attorney General 2013, lost to the Silver Fox by 907 votes. So he knows how it is to be in a very competitive and tough election. Now, I get a lot of press releases in the business that I'm in. They come every day, and you sift through them. The one that Mark Obenshain sent out yesterday called What? Is the funniest, most well-written press release I've ever gotten, ever. Put that at the top of the list. And Senator Obenshain, that is, I gotta send it out and send link to it because it is so well written, and I want to commend you on that. And also saying, well, wait a minute, some Democrats in the firehouse primary to nominate a candidate to replace the retiring Henry Marsh are now claiming there was voter fraud and asking for multiple IDs, but according to Democrats, there is no voter fraud. So what's going on here?
You know, this falls into the category of truth is stranger than fiction. It is truly amazing. And, you know, last week I was on your show, and let's set the stage. You know, this whole debate started with the passage of our photo ID law. And it was the political class in Virginia that pitched a fit. Mainstream voters, Republican, Democrat, Independent, they all see the common sense need for voters to show an ID. But elected Democrats have been screaming to high heaven that there is no voter fraud, that there is no need for us to enhance ballot security or to make sure that our elections are run with integrity. And lo and behold, was I surprised this weekend when the Democrats ran their own primary, their canvass for the nomination of a candidate to succeed Henry Marsh in the 16th Senate District. And what did they do? They required IDs with more stringent standards than we require at the state level. And even with the ID requirement, after the results came in, what did they scream? They screamed voter fraud, that it took place in their primary. And it just was a little bit too rich for me to pass up after having received countless emails, countless complaints, and blowback claiming by Democrats, elected Democrats, there is no voter fraud. Well, apparently that's not the case, or at least the Democrats in the 16th Senate District don't think that's the case.
Well, certainly, and especially when they were asking voters for several forms of ID. Now, let me get this straight. According to Democrats that oppose all voter ID laws, it doesn't matter what they are. They just want you to be able to show up, sign something, and go, saying there is no fraud. Some people can't get an ID. They can't find it. Even though you can't get on a Greyhound without an ID, we go on with that. But in this firehouse primary, in the 16th Senate District, well, they were asking for several IDs for proof of address. Well, how can, in a general, they don't need any IDs, but in a Democrat primary, you need several IDs? How does this work?
You know, if I was cynical, I might ask myself a couple of questions. Number one is, why is it that they demand integrity in their party-run nominating process, but fight any effort to institute integrity in general election contests? And I'm here to tell you that after I put out my news release and commented on the Richmond Senate nominating contest, I received countless emails from Democratic officials around the state and comments saying, oh, but this is a different kind of situation. You're comparing apples to oranges. This is a party-run nominating contest, and we can do anything we want. Well, why would they want integrity in nominating their candidates, but open the barn door for general elections in November? It makes absolutely no sense unless, you know, somebody had a nefarious motive.
It doesn't make any sense. And, I mean, it is what it is. Either you're for voter ID or you're for some form of identification to show up in the vote, or you're not.
It all comes down to rhetoric versus reality. And the sad, simple truth of the matter is that certain elected Democrats around Virginia saw this as an opportunity to try and beat up Republicans by using this as a rhetorical issue, when in fact they know full well that it makes perfect common sense to require an ID in order to vote. Do as I do, not as I say. It's a big mistake to mix reality with rhetoric, and the Democrats have demonstrated through their actions. The chairman of the Democratic Party of Virginia, Dwight Jones, is mayor of the city of Richmond, lives in that district and took an active role in the nominating process there. You know, they understand. ID makes common sense.
But at the end of the day is, how do you say in November you don't need ID, and then you run your own controlled primary and you ask for multiple IDs? I think you hit it on the head, Senator. That is just duplicitous.
It is. And, you know, it is easy to make light of this situation. And, you know, frankly, I think the Democrats deserve to have a little fun poked at them. But this is serious business. I mean, this comes down to the integrity of our election system. And you can go back to the election in 2000 and the Bush-Gore debacle, and our confidence nationally in the integrity of our elections hit an all-time low. And the Carter-Baker Commission, Jimmy Carter, Mr. Fair Elections himself, was charged with the task of recommending fair, bipartisan reforms to improve public confidence across the country in the integrity of our elections. At the top of that list was implementing meaningful photo ID. And that's something that Democrats supported, Republicans supported. Polls show that it will improve voter confidence in the system, and that's what we're about. That's what this is all about. And we need to set aside the hypocritical political rhetoric that's been spouted about voter ID and photo ID and understand this is a common sense solution to a real problem, and that problem is voter confidence in the integrity of our elections.
Absolutely. Couldn't said it better myself. Very, very articulate the way you outlined that. State Senator Obenshain, special session scheduled, I think, September 18th to, I guess, debate Medicaid expansion. Open that up for debate. Already Minority Leader David Toscano not too happy with what he believes is just going to be a sideshow without legitimate debate. Nobody really wants to see that taking place because that's a waste of time and money. What is your objective with the special session?
Well, one of the things to consider is the historical perspective. And you remember, John, that last year we established the Merck Commission, the Medicaid Reform Commission, which was supposed to complete its work, implement reforms before we even took up Medicaid expansion. This year, of course, with the new governor, we came back and the governor said, I don't care about the Medicaid Reform Commission. We're going to disband it. I will not follow that process. I reject it. And that threw the Medicaid debate completely out of whack. And then we wound up having a deadlock over our budget until the Senate changed hands as a result of a resignation. Within 2 days after the control of the Senate flipped from Democrats who had not even held a hearing on resolving our budget or on Medicaid, we convened session and got a budget passed within days. Part of the deal, as Delegate Toscano knows full well, was that we would at least allow Senator Emmett Hanger to go ahead and put in a bill to deal with Medicaid expansion and to at least give us a vote on it, give us an opportunity to speak on it. That bill is pending. It was an unusual turn of fate when it came up for a vote back in June when we passed the budget, and it failed to pass the Senate because a Democrat voted against it. But that bill is going to be considered, and it remains unclear as to whether it's going to even get out of the Senate. So Delegate Toscano, he can complain as much as he wants, but we're going to follow the legislative process and let the chips fall where they may.
So that legislation that you just mentioned, and I remember it, the one forwarded by Senator Hanger, a lot of Democrats are saying, that just isn't going to do anything. But it's something, isn't it?
Well, it's what we agreed that we would do. And quite frankly, what we really need to do is go back to a process, reform Medicaid, and find a market-based solution. We all agree that there's a problem with access to health care. It's put our hospitals and healthcare providers in a difficult spot, and I understand that, and I'm very sympathetic to them. But this is the wrong way to address that. We should not be addressing it by putting 400,000 more Virginians on Medicaid. We ought to be expanding it with market-based reforms that are going to help our healthcare community, that are going to recognize that you can't increase the demand without increasing the supply. We've got to make sure that we let the market work and expand access to health care for Virginians who, frankly, need it.
The special session, can anything else be addressed, or is it just narrowly defined with this one issue?
Well, I don't think that there are limits on what can be addressed right now. However, we're still in special session from March, and we're operating under those rules that do permit the introduction of limited additional bills. But realistically, I don't expect anything else to be addressed beyond Medicaid expansion right now. We're going to be back in session in January. One of the things that's great about Virginia is our part-time legislature. We've got to go back home and earn a living under the laws that we pass. It's very different from Congress, and I think that makes our system work better. And we have some real fiscal challenges. In this first year of our new governor, we've already busted the bank, and we need to make sure that we are watching our expenditures and growing our economy here in the Commonwealth of Virginia so we can meet our basic obligations. And this Medicaid expansion is a bank buster.